All right, let's get into this. So, recap. Phoenix police get a call about a strange person in the neighborhood. And then the video starts from here. So, although they do provide some information about what's going on, they really don't provide a whole lot of information because I'm still scratching my head about what the hell happened. Who the hell is who? They don't describe who this person is, whether they're one of, someone who called, about a suspicious person, or if this is the suspicious person. I suspect that it's the suspicious person, based off the body language of people here and how he's leaning up against the hood of the car, arms crossed. That's the typical pose and body language that the person takes when they've been stopped by the police. But the person who did the shooting, I got nothing other than a name on that guy. I can't find any information about why they did what they did and the circumstances involved. So when I do a search on this, the only stuff I can find is basically a few news entities basically regurgitating the same stuff from the initial press release on this incident. It's just not a whole lot of information. This person right here, I don't know who they are. But I suspect that they are the strange person in the neighborhood. The person who did the shooting is Kristopher Johnson. Kristopher spelt with a K. 40-year-old white male. But no explanation about why he did what he did or anything like that. Or how he's related to this incident, or if he's completely unrelated to it at all. No information there. In this video, you see at the very beginning that the 911 call is made by a woman, and then later another 911 call made by a woman. The voices sound similar to me, but I don't know if they're the same or not. So that's very unclear. I suspect that it is the same person, but I'm just not 100% sure. So if it was the same household making the 911 call, then that means that that guy who shot was from the household that called about this suspicious person. So that makes me wonder, why was he out walking around with his gun? And then, why did he shoot? I don't know, but I have a suspicion. But then, that suspicion doesn't really 100% make sense based off the fact that he continued to shoot his gun. So my suspicion is that this guy is from the household that called 911 about the strange person, and that he is out looking for this person. To either, confront him, to be like, hey, what are you doing? Or to guide police in. And that sounds very similar to the incident that made national news out of Florida, where there is a suspicious person walking through a neighborhood that a person did not recognize, and then they got out, or they followed them, and then they got out to go see where they went, and then boom, a confrontation happened. That was George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. So George Zimmerman was a neighborhood watch guy for his neighborhood. He observed Trayvon Martin walking through the neighborhood, looked suspicious to him, didn't recognize him, got on the phone with police, tried to tail him, figure out where he went, lost sight of him, got out to continue looking for him, and then boom, they met each other, and confrontation there ensued. So I suspect, like I said, that that's what that guy was doing. I suspect that he was from that household that made that call about the strange person, and he's out, looking around. If that is the case, then I think he's wrong for doing that. There's nothing illegal about it. There's nothing illegal about you walking around with a gun. Unless you're in a place like New York or Washington, D.C. But for most of everywhere else, it is perfectly legal to walk around with a gun. So there's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing illegal about going around your neighborhood and talking to people. Stopping and be like, hey, who are you? There's nothing illegal about asking a person why they're there. So although it's not illegal, I still think it's the wrong thing to do. Especially if it's not your job to be doing it and you're not equipped to be doing it. Now, that'd be a whole different question if, a whole nother scenario, if it was a private security guard hired to patrol that neighborhood. And that's their job, to patrol that neighborhood and make contact with suspicious people. That's different. That's their job. That's what they're expected to be doing. That's their job, and they're equipped for that. But as just a regular person from the neighborhood, I don't think it's a very good idea to be going out and doing that kind of stuff. You're just not, it's not your job to be doing that. And you're not equipped properly to be doing that. If he's walking around with just a gun, then that's his only tool. A deadly weapon is not going to solve all problems. So he's limiting himself to just his gun and or his fists and feet. He has no less lethal options. He's not uniformed in any way. He just looks like a regular Joe Blow. Does not have a command presence. Does not have a visual telltale sign that he's supposed to be there. That's his job to challenge people. Like, hey, what are you doing? Etc. And he doesn't have the right equipment. Doesn't have the right holster to keep that gun in case the fight happens or a physical fight happens. Doesn't have the right holster for it. Doesn't have a security retention holster. Gun is able to be easily taken away. May not even have a holster at all. Maybe just be stuck in his pocket or in his waistband or in his hoodie. That's not that's not a good place for your gun to be while, trying to do work. So although it's not illegal to go around your neighborhood asking people what the hell they're doing, it's just not tactically sound. It's not a good decision to be making. And I feel the same way with the George Zimmerman thing. Even though he was, neighborhood watch, it just wasn't in his best interest. And, plain clothes like that, walking around to be making contact with that suspicious person. Was not uniformed or equipped to be doing it. And of course it led to him being assaulted and basically getting his ass whipped and damn near having his head caved in and him having to resort to deadly force. But anyway, if this guy who did the shooting was, the dude from the household that called 911 and was out looking for this guy with good intentions, it doesn't really explain how the gun went off. Was he intentionally shooting at them? Or was it a negligent discharge? So when I think that this guy's from that household and that he's doing a, neighborhood watch thing, walking around looking for this guy, and he negligently discharges, well, that doesn't explain why he refuses to follow those commands and then why he shoots his gun again. Like, that part doesn't make sense. So it doesn't fully make sense that he could be out looking around from that household. So he could be someone completely different. So it's just it's about as clear as mud about the people involved. And I hate that. I wish there was more information because I'm really curious, like, who the fuck is this Kristopher Johnson guy and why the hell was he shooting? Anyway, moving on.
That interaction.
Hey! So, shots fired, they react, and it's about 10 seconds between that first shot and then this officer firing his gun. Maybe like 9 seconds.
Hey, show me your hands now! Show me your hands, I'm gonna shoot you! I will shoot you, show me your hands! A15 Mary 99.
I don't know what he could see. I can't see very much through the body camera footage. As good as the body camera is, it is a third generation version of Axon body camera. As good as it is, you still can't make out much of what's going on. I can't even see where the fucking dude's at. There's a couple times where I think it might be him, but it's too grainy. It's just not high definition enough to be able to tell for sure where the person's at exactly. But this officer with his human eye can, which that's always going to be the case with these cameras. Like, they just cannot see the way that the human eye sees. They can get some, good footage and everything, but they just will never be able to see it the way the officer could see it. So this officer can obviously see the guy, and he ends up shooting at the guy. Now, after that first shot, and he spins around, he pulls his gun, and he points it, he immediately sees the guy, and he starts verbally challenging him. But he does not shoot. Why is that? I suspect it's because either A, he couldn't tell for sure if he had a gun in his hand or not, or he could see the gun, but his hands were down and the gun was pointed down. He just simply wasn't dropping it. One of those two, I don't know for sure. Or it could be that he could make out the person but just couldn't make out anything else. But about 9 to 10 seconds in, that quickly changes and he starts shooting. So I suspect that at some point he could observe that the guy had a gun, and that's when he decided to start shooting. So this brings up light. I am of the opinion that all guns, all fighting guns, should have weapon-mounted lights. All guns. All fighting guns should have weapon-mounted lights. Even if you work during the day and you're primarily a daytime person and you're rarely ever out at night, your fighting gun should still have a weapon-mounted light. You can find yourself indoors without windows or in a basement, or you're inside and sunlight or some other kind of light is creating photonic barrier or whatever, that would mean that you need a weapon-mounted light. A weapon-mounted light is the best way to be shooting at night. The traditional low-light techniques of holding a flashlight in one hand and the gun in the other, whether you do the Harry's carry technique, FBI technique, whatever, although those can work, they're not as good as the option of shooting a gun with a weapon-mounted light on it. With a weapon-mounted light, especially for handguns, you're going to be able to get a good two-handed grip on that gun. When you do another low-light technique where you hold a gun in one hand and flashlight in the other, you're slashing your accuracy in half at that point, because you're taking your only other point of contact off that gun and leaving it just one point of contact, that one dominant hand holding the gun. So you're not going to be shooting as good. But with a weapon-mounted light, you get both hands on the gun, a good grip, you're going to be shooting better. Now, with the weapon-mounted lights, two things come into play, or two things come into talking points: lumens and candela. So, lumens and candela are measurements of light. And sometimes some of this gets confusing to people. Lumens is a very popular way of describing a measurement of light. However, just high lumens in and of itself does not mean that you're going to have good candela. Candela power is basically how far that light reaches and how bright the light is going to be when it reaches a distance, and that equating to what you're able to see. You can have a light that has a lot of lumens but not a whole lot of candela power. Like you get a shit ton of light right here in the beginning, but at a distance it fizzles out. You can't see much. So you've got to have a good, healthy balance of lumen and candela power. So you want a weapon-mounted light that has good candela. Something that's going to be able to reach out so that you can identify the target and whether or not it's a threat. When it comes to weapon-mounted lights, the brands that are out there as far as being known as reliable and everything, Surefire is number one at the top of the list in my opinion. You've got Streamlight, and then you've got Cloud and Modlight. Surefire and Streamlight are going to be probably the most two popular brands. Within law enforcement, you're going to see a lot of Streamlight. And the reason behind that is basically price. Streamlight is cheaper than Surefire. But when it comes down to it and people are, okay with spending more money, they're going to gravitate towards Surefire. And I don't make any money off Surefire. I don't, they don't give me money for talking about their stuff or anything like that. But I recommend Surefire. They're great. There's a reason why the Department of Defense Special Operations uses Surefire almost exclusively. There's a reason why so many SWAT teams out there use Surefire. If it was, these other companies are the best and, they make a good product and it's way cheaper, guarantee damn right they go with that. But Surefire makes a great product. Not saying it's better than all of them, but they make a really great product. So, the Modlight and the Cloud, they are emerging as being really great. Modlight, I think, is a company that could be a contender for Surefire. But this light stuff could be a whole video in of itself. So I can't spend a whole lot of time talking about light. But a good weapon-mounted light is something that you're going to need for a fighting gun so that you can positively identify the threat, or one, see the threat, and then positively identify whether or not they have a weapon, that they're a threat or not. And you just can't do that with a cheap light. There's a company, Olight. They make all kinds of different lights, crazy high lumens on them, and they're relatively cheap. But there's a reason why you do not see SWAT teams out there using an Olight weapon light. There's a reason why you don't see special operations using those. They're not known as being that great of a light. So do your research into weapon-mounted lights, and my recommendation is to stick with the known ones, the ones that you see other professionals talking about, and go with one of those. This officer here, it looks like to me he has a Streamlight, and Streamlight does great. I have a Streamlight. It's on one of my training guns, but my go-to weapon mounted light for my gun is a Surefire X300. It's a great product. Anyway, moving on.
A15 Mary 998, 106 Stratton Coulter 998, 106 Stratton Coulter. Yeah, I got him. Male is going to be running northbound 106 Drive, no shirt, black pants, shorts. He's aiming a gun at it. He shot multiple times. I got him still. Tack reload. He's still running north.
All right, let's see this one.
Tack reload. I got him still. Tack reload.
So he removes the magazine from the gun. Say that again.
I got him still. Tack reload.
And then I'm assuming that he is taking that magazine and putting it in a pocket. He's retaining it. And then he pulls out a new one.
He's still running north.
And then puts that in the gun. I like where his mindset is at with wanting to do a reload. So he knows that he has fired some rounds. There's now a bit of a lull in the fight, and he wants to do a reload so that if this fight continues and he has to shoot some more, well, he's going to be able to do that with a fresh magazine as opposed to a partially depleted one. So anytime you have the ability, and it's safe to do so, to do a reload, do a reload. Even if you think that you're positive you only fired 1 or 2 rounds, I still recommend do a reload. However, I did not like the way that he did this reload. So he's doing a tactical reload. When you talk about reloads, there's a few different types of, loading that you do with your gun. One is a tactical reload. This is where you fire some amount of rounds from your gun, and you want to put a fresh mag in that gun so that if you have to shoot some more, you're doing it with a fresh mag. But you want to keep the magazine, the partially depleted magazine, from your gun. That way, if you were to go through those other magazines and they all went dry, completely empty, fired every single round out of them, then you could go back to that one partially depleted mag and put it in the gun and have those rounds to work with. It sounds great in theory. But I just cannot think of any incident that has occurred where someone got down to a retained partially depleted mag, and that was the magazine they ended the gunfight with. Like, for sure, I cannot think of any self-defense, like regular Joe citizen incidents where they shot part of a magazine, took it out, put it in their pocket, put a new one in, completely depleted that one, and then took that partially depleted one and put it back in the gun, and then continued the fight and ended the fight with that. Cannot think of any incidents from the citizen world, and I can't think of any police ones either. Now, the only incident that does come to my mind where an officer had to go to a partially depleted mag and continued to fight was the one out of Texas. But it was not a magazine that he retained. It was one that he started to shoot out of his gun, and the damn thing fell out. And then he went to another magazine. And it was during the daytime. It was the guy they were chasing in a car, and he had a full Glock auto switch. And he got into a shootout with the police. That's the only incident I can think of, at least from these videos that I've been doing, where an officer continues a gunfight with a magazine that had been ejected and was partially depleted. But like I said, even then, that was not from the standpoint of that officer purposely ejecting that magazine and retaining it in a pocket and then later reusing it. So like I said, the idea of a tactical reload sounds great, but I don't think there's any incidents that support the idea behind that tactic. So it's something that I've learned at different places and I've done in training. And when I do it, it's usually in those courses where that's what that particular instructor is teaching and is wanting to see. When I do force on force and I do any kind of competition shooting, I don't do that. I don't do the tactical reload stuff. When I do a reload, the partially depleted magazine goes to the ground. I don't make an attempt to try and retain it. Now I will reclaim it after I've put the gun or dangered the gun back up, got it with a fresh mag. I'll squat down and grab it and then pocket it. But I do not make it a habit to do that on my own. The only time that I do that is is if I've been in a training class and that's what the instructor is teaching and is expecting to see. Other than that, I default to the basic thing that I have trained for, and that is to, like I said, let that magazine fall from the gun and hit the ground. Now, with all that being said, the tactical reload that he does, I like the fact that he wants to do a reload, but I don't like how he does it. And it's not for the simple fact that he didn't let that one magazine hit the floor or the ground. It's the simple fact that he removed the magazine from the gun before having a fresh mag there to put in it. So when he took that magazine out of the gun, there was a time frame in which that gun was a one-shot hammer. What he should have done was reach down to his belt, pull the fresh mag out, bring it up to the gun into his workspace, meaning right there in front of him, eject the magazine into his hand that's holding the live mag like you do on a tactical reload, pull it out, manipulate his hand, and insert the new one. And then put that old mag away into a pocket. That's what he should have done. That way, if the fight, boom, happened during the middle of that reload, there's less time that gun is out of the fight. If, during this magazine change that he did, where he reached it up, pulled the magazine out of the gun, and then went down, if that guy started shooting at that point, he would have been able to get one round off before he could complete the action of reaching into his belt, pulling a new mag out, and then putting it in the gun, and then racking that slide and getting the gun in the fight. That would be too much time with the gun down. You get less downtime when you bring that magazine up, that fresh magazine up to the gun, into your workspace, and then do the reload there. Now, reloads is something else that could probably be a whole video in of itself. I could talk more about reloads, but I'll just leave it at that.
He's still shooting at us. Rounds are going by. He's going to be.
So he says he's still shooting at us. Rounds are going by. So, although we can't hear it in the camera, he may be hearing that distinctive sound of a bullet flying by. He could be hearing that whiz or that snap as it goes by.
Northbound still. Hey, he's still running north. He's going. I got him moving still. I got him moving still. Keep pushing up. Keep pushing up. He went eastbound from our location. He shot a couple more rounds at us.
Here's body-worn camera video from another officer on scene.
I got him moving still. Keep pushing up. Keep pushing up. He went.
So there's times where he turns the light off and then turns it back on. Keep that in mind, and then I'll play portions from the other footage, and then I'll talk
eastbound
about light.
From our location. He shot a couple more rounds at us. Hey, show me your hands now! Show me your hands, I'm gonna shoot you! I will shoot you! Show me your hands!
Very 998, 167 Coulter, 998, 167 Coulter.
You got eyes on him? Where's he at?
Wheel is going to be running north on drive, no shirt, black and short. North on drive, no shirt, black and short.
All right. So, light discipline. Weapon-mounted lights are used to see the target while you're shooting at it, and to, in some instances, search for a target. Though the use of light should be done carefully. So earlier, this guy had his weapon-mounted light activated for a good portion of time, but he was not actively aiming his gun at something or shooting at something. But yet he was broadcasting a very loud signal. Broadcasting a very bright light. Light is an indicator. It's a signaling device. It's like a beacon. It shows where you are. So that whole entire time he's broadcasting his exact location to the potential adversary there. That's not a good use of light. You don't want your light turned on while you're doing reloads. You don't want your light turned on while you're just trying to move from point A to point B, doing bounding. Because that broadcasts exactly where you are, and it shows the other person what you're looking at and what you're not looking at. If you have ever played flashlight tag at night, or you did some stuff that resulted in the cops being called at night and they were shining their spotlights around, or you watch, a movie and you see the cliche, prison break scene where they escape out of their room and they're out in the yard and they got the big searchlight out and it's panning left and right really slow, and when it goes by a certain area they know when to run and go hide behind something else and then wait while the light crosses, and then it goes back again, and then they know when to run and go hide behind something else. Any of those, if you've seen or experienced that, you understand what I'm talking about. Your light can be used against you. You can see where it's originating from, and you can see what it can and cannot see in terms of you. You know that light's either on you or not. So you've got to be careful with how you use your white light. There's no need to have your white light turned on if you don't need to. You can use it in snapshots while you're searching and while you're moving. When you are actively shooting at something, that's really the only time it needs, or if either A, you're actively shooting at something, or B, you've got your gun trained on a target that you intend to shoot. That's the only time you should have that weapon-mounted light on continuous on. Otherwise, it should be used in snapshots very sparingly.
Just aiming a gun at it for trouble.
All right.
Officers began searching the neighborhood looking for the man.
Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.